Hey everybody, this is Anthony, the marketing dude, bringing you the third edition of the Funnel Vision podcast. Today we will talk about sonic identity. I love that phrase. It was conceived by Daniel Marc Evans, who is my subject today, who will join me in this podcast. Daniel is an expert on audio for outlets like hotels, restaurants, and bars, etc. And it's something I never thought of. I always used to think of people just putting in an iPod, plugging it into their audio system in the venue, and then that's it. That's where it goes. But I was so wrong. This is an entire industry, huge industry, and Daniel is lucky enough to be part of it, to be working with music on a daily basis. And without further ado, here we go.
Yeah, so my name's Daniel. I run the Middle East offices for a company called Music Concierge. We're a UK-based supplier of what people tend to refer to as background music. We don't use the word background in any of our collateral just because we just don't think it is a background function. So we provide to some of the biggest names around the world that you'll have definitely heard of. Places like Hyatt, One and Only, Marriott, all the major hotel groups.
So what do you mean by you provide? Like, what are you providing?
Cool. So what we do is...
Because it's not background music like you said.
No, so we provide bespoke playlisting and obviously the hardware that goes along with that. So all of our playlisting, it's built from the ground up, completely handmade. There's no machine learning, there's no AI, just because music is a fundamentally human thing, and I think you need humans to be able to get the desired effect with it. So we build everything completely from the ground up, yeah. So if you hear music in a shopping mall, you hear music in a hotel or restaurant, there's a good chance it's going to be us who are designing
So right now we're sitting here in Dubai Mall and we're listening to this music that's playing. It's beautiful music, but you always hear this music everywhere that you're walking in the mall. And is that something that you guys do? Is that the kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So any music that you hear in a public space, of a mall or a restaurant, or even in the washrooms of a hotel, you're going to hear music in all of those areas, and someone's got to provide it, right? Historically, this stuff was you'd pop a CD or a tape into a CD deck or something like that, and it would play out through the spaces. But the way that people are approaching different things within their developments, whether that's music, or whether that's lighting, or whether that's scent, it's fundamentally different now, and people are taking more care than ever.
So that brings me to my question, because I was thinking, I always thought, and I'm pretty sure everyone listening to this podcast thought, that it's just whether I go to a hotel and I hear nice music and stuff, somebody just pop like a headphone jack into their iPhone and they're just playing their playlist from Spotify or SoundCloud. Is that not what happens?
I mean, it still does happen. Obviously with companies like ours, there is a cost implication. It's going to be a lot cheaper to plug your iPod in. There's no question of that. It's technically illegal because you need proper music licensing.
Oh, yeah.
So we work with collection agencies in London called PPL and PRS. We report all of our usage of music to them, and then they send us a great big bill for it. We pay it, but then what that means is that record labels and artists get paid properly for their work. Whereas if you just plug your iPod in, you're not licensed to use that music in a commercial fashion. So it's, technically illegal.
Yeah, and it'll be very awkward if that particular artist was staying in that hotel that time, and he hears his song, and goes, wait a second.
Exactly.
Like, am I getting paid for this?
Yeah, I mean, you think of how much it would cost to do it on an iPod versus how much it costs to pay people like us to do it. There's a difference, but the cost of getting sued by an artist who stays in your hotel is going to be a lot higher than both of those things.
Especially in Dubai, where now you just have these artists coming and going every second week, and one day you have Beyonce staying at some hotel, and then you have Kanye, and who's the guy who was speaking at Spike Lee. Let's say Spike Lee is here, and maybe he produced a song, and you're like, that's my song. Right? So what do?
And those guys will take you to the cleaners if they find out that you've been using their music in a commercial fashion. And they're right, to be honest with you. They've made music, and if you're benefiting from it by pulling customers in and keeping them
and these are paying customers.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
so you're making money from
in a restaurant or a bar space, okay, they love the music, they've stayed on and had another drink. The artist should be being rewarded for that.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, because I've always thought that some places the music just flows. You go to a hotel like the One and Only. Let's say the One and Only, right? It's a great venue, great place, and every time you go there, the music just adds to the personality of the place. And is that because a company like yours has actually sat down and done that human element and I'd call it human algorithm rather than AI. So people probably sat down and thought, all right, song to song, track to track, what's the flow of the mood? Is that how it works? Can you run us through that? How does it work?
Pretty much. I think human algorithm is a nice way of thinking about it, because rather than doing X plus Y equals Z, we do a consultancy process that links those dots together as well. So when we come into a new project, the first thing that we do with people is a brand workshop, effectively. So we talk to them about their brand, talk to them about their audience, the different concepts that might be within a different space. And then you pull all of that information together, and that's how you start to bring playlisting together. We sample all of that back to the client, tell them our ideas for different spaces, but that's how it's done. So there's a real understanding of brand. That's the most important thing. So when you think of something like One and Only, for example, what are their brand values? Luxury, relaxation, just a cool contemporary ambience.
Yeah.
So we bring those things together. Then you bring an audience into that picture. Say, okay, their average guest is 45 to 55, tend to be from this part of the world. What do these people like? How do we tie that into those brand values? And that's where we start to build up the playlist in front.
Yeah. So that's a very particular type of venue. But let's say you have a more upbeat, more jazzed up venue, something that's more towards the millennials or to the 30-somethings. Because now you have a lot of, like, for example, me and other people, I think the generation which is like the 35 to 45, the disposable income, and they like to do staycations, and they don't choose the One and Only, they choose, just to name drop a few hotels that I like Al Seef, the properties, right?
Yep.
Great venue, their music is very different. Or maybe Studio One, for example. Again, because of the concept of the hotel, it's different kind of music. So how do you approach those kind of hotels? Because that's a very different kind of mentality.
Yeah, sure. The process is fundamentally the same, of holding those brand workshops and understanding the audience. One of the challenge with properties like that is that their audiences tend to be a bit broader, so you're really trying to please a lot of people. The way we do it is having a thumb on the pulse of cutting edge music and not just using anything that's traditional. We're not elevator music, we're not just putting on a bad jazz soundtrack and hoping for the best. Our company, one of the things that we're really passionate about is sending people around the world to source music. So one of our guys has just been in Tokyo and Shanghai last week. He'll bring back a bunch of Japanese and Chinese music. We bring it all back to the UK, digitize it, license it, so that then the next time someone comes into a Japanese venue that we work on, it's a really authentic sound. It ends up sounding really cool and probably never heard before in a restaurant space. So when we're looking at kind of that millennial market, we're doing a similar thing, Okay, cool. What are millennials listening to these days? Are they still interested in Cardi B, or have they moved on to the next thing? And all of that information and making sure we've got our finger on the pulse is how we continue to drive that playlist.
Your Spotify must look incredible, because you probably have the skinny on all new stuff that most of us haven't heard of, but are amazing in other countries.
My wife is a better Spotifyer than I am, but yeah, mine looks pretty good. My playlists tend to be sort of new music of each month and not just the ones that Spotify suggests to you. I tend to build my own stuff on there on a weekly basis usually. I'm pretty invested in Spotify.
So I think, I'm a marketer and I'm listening to this stuff, and I have to say that when I walk into a really good venue, whether it's a great mall or it's an up-and-coming hotel, and I listen to the music that's going on and I look at how it blends in with the actual ambience of the place or whatever the personality of the venue is, and I think, wow, and it matches what they're showing on their Insta, the visuals and stuff. So from a marketing perspective, I think that's a great way to build the personality. Because normally, as a traditional marketer, I would say, all right, what's the visual identity? What's the logo? What's the colors? I would never have thought of sound. But I would think that, marketers should be not sitting in those meetings to provide information, but just sit to listen to what you guys are saying, because that builds into that personality of the brand. What is the voice of the brand, for example? Or, like, for example, we all have a soundtrack to our lives, right? So does the hotel.
Exactly.
The hotel has its soundtrack to its existence. And that's a marketing thing for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, in traditional marketing, we have always looked at visual identities. Now, the way that people are calling it now is sonic identity.
Nice. Sonic identity.
Yeah, that encompasses a couple of different things. It tends to be, let's take, for example, a mall. It's going to be the background music that's in the mall. But it's also going to be any of the messaging that comes through as well. So anything that's public address, in-store announcements. How do we tie all of that stuff together to make the sonic identity of the mall? And it's something, I think marketers need to be aware of. Human beings have 5 senses. We've got our noses, we've got our eyes, our ears, and we've got to make sure in the marketing world that we're shaping these experiences that are hitting everybody's senses in the right way. I think with music, it's such an obvious thing when you go somewhere and the music's terrible. It stands out instantly. And I think in Dubai, we'll notice that. Everyone's been to, I don't know, like a bar or a lounge or something that's the same tired house music, and it really damages that experience. So for marketing professionals, it's something to think about.
Well, that's, you actually did raise a good point, because around 2 months ago, I went for a buffet, and the theme of the restaurant was very retro, but because the guy who owned that restaurant really liked techno, all he played was techno. And everyone in the restaurant was eating. We enjoyed the food, but everyone kept looking up like, what is this god-awful music? I mean, I love techno, but he was playing the kind which is just beats and you can't actually hear the music.
Sure.
And so we called the head waiter, like, can you change the music? He's like, sorry, sir, the owner likes it. But does he realize that this is just not fitting the ambience he's created? And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't change it. So, that matches what you're saying.
It's a problem that we run in all the time. And generally who we work with, it will be marketing teams. It'll occasionally be operational teams as well. And one of the challenges in our business is getting people to take their opinion of music and separate that out from what the brand needs as music. And that's a classic case of where you've just got an owner who's like, well, I like it, so everybody must like it. And it's not like that. A buffet restaurant, for example, is going to run 250, 300 covers every lunchtime. There's more people involved than the owners tasting techno there. So what we train people to do is take yourself out of that situation, rebuild yourself as your average consumer, put yourself in their shoes. What do they want from this experience? And that's obviously a fundamental factor in what it is that we do.
Now I remember what it was. It's Absolute Barbecue.
Thankfully, not one of my clients. That's good news.
Absolute Barbecue has incredible barbecue. It's great food.
Barbecue.
Except for the music.
Yep.
So you sit there, you love the ambience. I love it. It's very woody. It's very like old school, like an old school restaurant, even though it's a new restaurant. But then the music comes on, and like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Right? And plus, you expect it to be maybe Indian music or something because of the people there. And the last thing you expect, it's Indian barbecue, but it's playing techno.
Yeah. It's also a really kind of family-friendly venue, isn't it? That's where groups get together, and so techno is just going to stand out. And I think, we've all got our favorite restaurants, right? I've got my favorite, you've got your favorite. I know that when I go to that restaurant, the food's going to be good, right? That's a given.
Yes.
But it's those other elements of the experience. Is the music good? Yes. No. Is the lighting right? Yes. No, because I couldn't see my food. Is there a weird smell coming out the back, Those are the little bits that make the difference.
The Starbucks factor.
Yeah.
The Starbucks. Every Starbucks you go to will smell the same and will have the same layout. Not layout, but rather it's the same colors. The whole point of it is that they want to make sure that if I'm a Starbucks customer, any Starbucks I go to, it'll feel like I'm in the same place, right? And so, I get you. Like,
I hear they pipe that coffee smell through the vents.
Yes, that's what I've heard as well. I have. So, do you have any interesting stories that you'd like to share?
I think one thing that we find regularly, which generally turns out pretty interesting, is when people have a perception of what their brand is and then what they actually need the end experience to be. Something that we always come up against. We work with a bunch of sneaker stores. I won't name any, but we work with some of the biggest shoe department stores in the country. And, when they've got a sneaker department, the inclination tends to be, okay, let's get some hip-hop on.
Oh, yeah.
Hip-hop tends to have some interesting content, And,
oh, yes.
Yeah, so, there's going to be a lot of words that we can't really use. There's going to be a lot of sort of suggestive content. So a lot of the time what happens, people are like, I really want this. Like, I want my Kendricks, I want my Jay-Z's. You put it on in the store, and then we censor our content anyway. But the way that rap is censored, you can kind of tell what the words are from the blank parts. And so that doesn't always tend to go down that well. And it is something that as a brand, sure, okay, we're looking to cultivate this experience. but also we don't want to upset people who are coming in the store either.
Yeah. Especially in this country.
Definitely, yeah. And so your beeps and your blanks, you've got to be pretty careful with them.
Yeah. Wow. Right, so here's a question, and you can choose to not name anybody.
Sure.
Right, fine. And I think for the second part, you might want to name them. But what is the worst experience you've had in terms of the music cultivation that you're doing for brands? So maybe it's been a horrible experience because of XY factor. And what is the best that you think is your crowning achievement for music curation, or what do you call it? Sonic
identity.
Sonic identity.
Yeah. I think one of the challenging things that we always have in our industry is the abilities of clients to separate out the different elements of the systems that go into these places. Okay, so for us, we provide a music player and we provide music content. The second step in that system is going to be the amplification equipment, the speakers, that sort of thing. We don't provide those. So because there's multiple steps in how these systems are driven, it can be challenging for clients to understand which part of that's broken. And in all honesty, it doesn't tend to be us. Our hardware is very simple, whereas amplification and speaker equipment are really quite complex systems. So we often catch heat on behalf of AV suppliers, because, okay, something's not working. The instinct is to blame the music guys.
Yeah.
So that is an ongoing challenge. And obviously, but that's a bit of an education piece for us as well, making sure that people understand who does what. From a content perspective, it goes back to that idea of your owners, right? It's that separation, and for people to understand that this music isn't for them. They're not, well, they might come and shop here on the weekend, but these experiences are not designed for them. It's designed for another segment of customers. So that's always our challenge. So yeah, that happens. We obviously can't name people it's happened with.
Of course.
But in terms of best experiences, yeah, there's a restaurant that I'm really fond of actually in JLT. Everyone knows it because it's probably the best burger restaurant in the city at the moment, which is Pickle. Pickle, great owner behind it who understood that we were the experts in music. So he said, here's my brand, here's what I'm trying to achieve. It's a blank palette for you guys to work on. Go make something that sounds cool. And the interior design of the restaurant is very industrial, stripped out ceilings, it's got a bit of a retro feel. So we came back with this soundtrack of funk and soul and a journey of like smart, cool hip hop through the ages. So early in the day, it's like Grandmaster Flash and stuff like that. But as the day progresses, it turns into a Tribe Called Quest and things like that. So it's a really good urban sound with none of the kind of blanks and beeps that you'd get in your more sort of 90s gangster rap scene. So it's a really cool, really interesting hip-hop sound, which works for me. Hip-hop was one of my first loves in music.
So you're wearing the cap as well now, so looking really dressed for it.
There you go. And like sneaker culture is something I'm always passionate about. Like you'll find me at Seoul every year.
Daniel's wearing a New Era cap, so there you go.
So yeah, being able to do that and just design something just as a blank palette for us and for our creative team, that's super rewarding, because when a client says, you know what, we trust you to make the right call here, that's when we get the best experiences out of music, because our creative team is just allowed to shine. And so that is, things like that make the job worth it.
Yeah, nice. That's now you've tempted me obviously to go and try a Pickle. I definitely want to. But now I'm going to be.
Burger is just.
Yeah, but you see, now I'm going to be sitting there, and I'm also going to be listening to the music. Like that's Daniel. That's
Well, the music's banging in there.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, you'll have a good time.
You mentioned something that I forgot to ask you, but I asked you now, and you've mentioned this in our previous conversations online. Technology and the equipment behind it. I think you said that sometimes there are servers involved and stuff. But what is that about?
Yeah, so all of our music needs to be stored on secured hardware. At the end of the day, we're using licensed music, so we can't just send you a pack of 500 MP3s. You stick it on a USB stick and plug it into an amplifier.
Because Jim might say, "Oh, I can play this at my kid's birthday."
Yeah, exactly. So our licensing agreements state that we have to have everything on lockdown hardware. We build our hardware on sort of a Windows PC infrastructure, but it's a heavily skinned version. It's very locked down. Goes onto a server. Those get mounted into a standard AV rack, and then you run it out into the amplifier from there. But hardware-wise, it's always pretty simple.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about something here in terms of like your customer. So let's say there's a person listening on this podcast who is starting a restaurant, or maybe he's the manager of a hotel, and like he's the first time he's hearing about something like this, and he's like, oh well, this sounds like a lot of hard work. Like, where do I start? Do I really need to do all of this? So what would you tell them? What would be the way to approach this?
That it's pretty simple, really. Those brand workshops that we talked about just now, that takes half a day with the client. It's not really that severe. We like to come in, sit down in the space, experience it a little bit. That's not always that routine if you're doing a new build, because generally you'll just have a shell and core to work with. But we'll sit down and go through their concept docs, all of their renders and things like that. And it only really takes half a day. Then, for that half a day investment, plus obviously a financial investment, they can just forget it at that point. You know, we review with our clients regularly to understand the changes in the business, changes in the demographic, things like that. But the thing, when you look at hotel managers or F&B managers, their to-do list is like 10,000 things a day, and music just doesn't need to be one of them. So they hand it over, and then happy days after that. It's pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wow. So we're in the Middle East, and obviously I think a lot of your clients are from this region, not just the UAE. How do you tackle in the concept of Arab culture in the music? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of Arabic music, different kinds of Arabic music. You know, you have from the Apple and the Apostles, kind of like more like indie Arabic, or then you have the more traditional, like, you know, Wild Furi. How does that work in your industry?
Keeping your finger on the pulse is super important with this stuff, and when we look at kind of the indie scene in particular for Arabic music, there's a great indie scene in Beirut, great indie scene in Amman as well, and there's this really kind of cool contemporary music that comes out. But often when you design for an Arabic concept, people like the classics sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, they like their Kulthums, they like Fairuz. So you've got to be willing.
Very nostalgic.
Yeah, I think musically Arabs can be very nostalgic.
Yeah.
You know, they think back to those tunes that was on Mum's radio in the kitchen growing up in Cairo or something. And
yes, that's a very good analogy.
Yeah,
yes.
it tends to be that there is a lot of nostalgia, but for us that's also an education piece. So we'll say to them, look, that's will possibly work fantastically at different times of day, but why don't you experiment a little bit?
Yeah.
If it's lunchtime and you're going for a cafe vibe, bring in some kind of cooler indie music. You can still have that Arabic feel with Arabic indie music. You'll still have oud instrumentation, you'll still have heavily Arabic vocals, but it'll sound a little bit different, and you can do something different. So really, yeah, for us that's ongoing. You know, always trying to educate people about the different styles of music, because music is a kaleidoscope. You know, there's no list of 100 songs we work from. Our library is close to 700,000 tracks at any point.
Holy cow!
So it's massive, you know, and that's always growing. So yeah, there's so much to take from.
Yeah, because, you know, and it's funny you touched on that, because the nostalgia part is so true. I mean, whenever I hang out with for example, my Lebanese friends, there's this culture in the Lebanese community that I really admire. Every time we've gone to, for example, an Arab contemporary restaurant or a pub or something like that, anytime a great Arabic song comes up on the speakers, they all start singing. So the restaurant, you'll be different tables, and everyone just started singing to the song.
Yeah.
And they're all like clapping their hands and stuff. And the first time I saw that, I'm like, what is going on? And then I went to Beirut, and people do this everywhere in Beirut. If they're sitting in a restaurant, or even in just having like a pancake somewhere, you know, or a cock bread, and suddenly a song comes up, and even the older people, as well as the young people, are all just singing along to the stuff. It's not just listening; they're taking part in the music.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the nostalgia factor is a huge deal for Arabs.
And that's why we don't like the idea of background music and being described as background music, because an experience like that it's very foreground.
Yeah.
You've got people who will get up and start dancing and singing, and that's not a background experience. No. So that's why we definitely shy away from that term. We don't like it at all. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, last question. Why did you get into it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've always worked in the hospitality, supply and travel industries, so I've worked across a few different product lines. I think, like anyone in our business, music was just a passion growing up, and I think a lot of us can say that, right? Music, I think, particularly when you're growing up in your teenage years, you go through your first breakup, you know, music is central to some of those
songs.
Yeah, exactly. Music is central to a lot of those themes. So I think, for a lot of us, music is a really important point. in our lives. So for me, when the opportunity came up to work with music as well, it was a no-brainer. I just walked away from my job before that. I was like, no, I'm going to go work with music.
Wow.
And then just a love of travel and hotels. I originally worked in corporate travel booking. That was what I did straight out of uni. And that was really just a love of traveling, a love of hotels. Bring that in with music, and providing music to hotels and restaurants is kind of perfect for me in terms of a role. I walk the walk. I think, my summers are spent at Glastonbury Festival.
Yes,
they're not.
exactly. Oh, we all know that.
Yeah, exactly. I talk about Glastonbury a lot. I can talk about it more now if you like. It's one of the best experiences on the planet. It's got an interest.
So the question I had was, let's just start from the top. Glastonbury is this fantastic festival. You love talking about it. Everyone loves to go. Riz is going. That's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but why is it that... So you have your Glastonburys, you have Ultra, you have Tomorrowland, Burning Man. But then Ultra, Tomorrowland, and Burning Man have a certain type... It's a genre that they follow. Glastonbury is all genres.
Yeah.
It's this massive festival... music festival. Why has it not been replicated anywhere else in the world? I mean, you'd think that countries like Japan or even Dubai, which had a fantastic desert rock, even they haven't done it.
Yeah, I think one of the fundamental things of Glastonbury that makes it unique, and this is a really interesting topic to talk about on a marketing podcast, it has no marketing. There's literally no advertising on the site.
You're right.
When you
there's no posters.
On the main stages. There's no Coca-Cola adverts. There's across the front of the big pyramid stage, which is the main venue in Glastonbury. It's just got signs for Greenpeace and WaterAid.
Yes.
Those are two of the big charities that are sponsored by the festival. So there's no marketing, which is in a funny sort of way, is the marketing for the festival.
In a capitalist
because people
world.
know that, so this year the ticket price is £265. What's that, about 1,200, 1,300 dirhams, I guess? But a chunk
which
of
is
that,
cheap comparatively.
For what you get, it is cheap.
Yes.
I don't use the word lightly because I know that everybody's budgets are slightly different, and one man's cheap 1,200 is a different man's expensive 1,200.
No, but when I say cheap, I'm saying you're getting 20 bands, 100 bands, whatever it is.
100.
I'm just joking. I mean, I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about.
Do you know how many performances there were last year? 3,000 performances across 5 days.
3,000.
Yeah, and obviously you can't see them all. That's impossible.
So let's put that into perspective, Daniel. In Dubai, if I go for a music festival, I'm easily paying 900 dirhams.
Yeah, for
for
4 or 5 bands, maybe.
3,000 performances for the same price. Okay.
Yeah, it's good value.
Yeah.
But so I think for a lot of people, when they buy the ticket, a big part of that appeal is that they're supporting charities. They're supporting Greenpeace. They're supporting WaterAid. And then just the reputation of the festival to attract big acts is second to none. The incredible thing about it is that they don't pay artists anywhere near as much as they do at other festivals because they don't have the ad revenue, right? But because of the reputation, and this is a great case study in reputation management. Because of that reputation, bands will come. They'll take a quarter of their usual fee, and they're happy to play because it's Glastonbury, so they're cool.
It's prestige.
Yeah, exactly. So they've just announced their first headliner for next year, which is Paul McCartney, who apparently
holy cow,
would normally command a massive fee.
Yes.
But for Glastonbury, he'll cut it right down because it's Glastonbury.
Yeah.
And so from a marketing perspective, how great is that? You know that you don't really need to do as much marketing because your reputation is so good. But that's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's because you've marketed it so well through the years, your reputation is so high that you reward yourself down the marketing line.
Yeah.
And the festival this year, it sold out in 25 minutes. 200,000 tickets.
Wow.
Gone, 25 minutes.
That's crazy.
So, that is a marketer's dream.
That is.
And I think sales as well.
And there you go. I think because it's not a capitalist mindset concert or event, it's not the same thing. That's why it can run so well. I mean, they don't have the same constraints of budget because they're not paying for that.
Yeah.
Plus they don't have to please sponsors. They probably have sponsors, but the sponsors are probably subliminal as opposed to, oh, look, our logo is everywhere. Because let's be honest, look what happened with Fire Festival, look what happened to others. You have big events. There is an event going on in Dubai right now, which is a phenomenal event in terms of its content, and I give full kudos to the organizers, but I'm pretty sure the sponsors are pretty upset right now. You know?
Yeah,
So,
I imagine so.
yeah, I'm gonna edit it out, but sorry, Kira, I love you, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm really pleased because I remember when Creamfields was first announced by Abu Dhabi, I was there and I stayed there. I stayed up the entire 24 hours for that entire event, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, they should bring that back actually.
Yeah, but then it went from 2 days to 1 day,
Yeah.
and now no days. Like that just fizzled out. I don't know what happened. The first event was classic. It was Above and Beyond, Armin, Gareth Emery. You name the people, they were there.
Yep.
It was to the level of this is like Tomorrowland in Dubai.
Yeah.
And they delivered. I remember David Guetta was the last act, and he flew in on a helicopter at 4 a.m. because his set was 4:20. You know, and that again, the whole vibe, it's a classic, right? And then suddenly next year, it's like, where did it go?
Yeah, so it was weird how that was kind of almost one and done, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that shows how hard it is to market and organise a music festival. It's no joke.
No,
it's
not.
really difficult to put together. But obviously, people like Glastonbury, who are now this year celebrating their 50th anniversary.
50.
Yeah, this is the 50th this year, which is why again, like there was such demand for tickets. Actually,
No wonder Paul McCartney's on it.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to have that kind of a headline.
Yeah. So they've got 50 years of experience.
Yeah.
It's a little different from me wanting to put on a festival in Dubai tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it is tricky. The other thing is that festivals globally are in decline. I don't have any numbers to back that up, but festivals are starting to close, particularly the smaller ones. They're not surviving so well. It's indicative of the way the music industry's changed, really.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look at what's been happening to our local festivals. I mean, we had for all the negatives that people talk about Dubai's had great music events. I mean, I really believe that the crowning glory of Dubai's music events has always been the Desert Rock Festivals. Those are always impeccably done, perfect for the fans, even the casual rock fans, great acts, everything else. Unfortunately, it just wasn't sustainable in this economy. And you have, the Jazz Festival is a great example, but again,
that would be the one that I hold up as the shining light at the moment, isn't it? And they've managed to keep that going for years, which is fantastic.
But again, now it's starting to be like they need to run it rather than they want to run it because it's a Dubai brand.
Yep.
And you can see the reflection in the artists they bring down because, and this is not to knock them. Obviously I go for everyone because I like the acts, but it went from incredible jazz artists who are headliners to incredible pop artists who are headliners, and the jazz artists are coming, but they're not headliners
on
anymore.
secondary stages.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Let's take an example, and again, not knocking you guys, I love you guys, but Spyro Gyra is my favorite jazz act. They're one of the greatest. They're legendary, and they're coming, but they're not. Yeah, they're on your headline list, but they're not going to be the one you're going to sell the event on. You're probably going to get somebody else to sell the event on with their name.
Yeah.
You know?
So who have they got this year? Oh, because they've got Lionel Richie this year, isn't it? Is that right?
it?
Isn't it? Who I think kind of fits into that quite nicely.
But I'm willing to cut.
Lionel Richie.
I'm willing to cut Lionel Richie some slack because he is from the Motown jazz era.
But they've
black
got
jazz.
Lauren Hill this year as well, which is a good catch.
Yeah. That I think she did come once and it didn't happen, or it wasn't a really great performance.
I think it was one of those ones where they had sound issues. Maybe.
Yes, I remember that. But so I'm going for Lauren Hill.
Yeah, definitely,
absolutely.
Amazing.
But again, I'm going for pop and hip hop acts.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Originally, when they announced Spyro Gyra, I'm like, I'm buying my ticket right now. Right? Because, like I said, and if you haven't heard of Spyro Gyra, go and look up Unknown Soldier online by Spyro Gyra. It will blow your mind. What else is there? You have this, and then Abu Dhabi just signed on Ultra.
Yep.
So Ultra's coming down. Good on you, Abu Dhabi. But again, is it going to last?
I'm glad that with Ultra, what they've done is they're bringing Ultra to town. If you remember a couple of years ago, they were doing that thing with Tomorrowland, where it's like live screened from actual Tomorrowland.
Yes, it's very bizarre.
That's for me, and I know that obviously in EDM, it's not live in the way that a guitar band is live.
Well, no.
But it's still a performer.
And they
see
adapt
it on a
to
video
your audience.
screen.
They do adapt to the audience.
Yeah, of course. And if you see on a video screen, well, I might as
not
well
the
go
same
watch
thing.
that in the cinema.
Exactly.
You know,
or
it
call my
work.
friends home and put it on my big screen at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
The drinks will be cheaper at home
Okay.
too. So.
But then Above and Beyond has this really interesting thing. So they're my favorite act, the EDM act, and so their live performance is always interesting. Where there are three guys, right? Two of the guys will always be mixing. They'll keep mixing up among themselves, but there will be two guys on the mixers doing the music, and the third guy will be engaging with the audience. while the mixing is going on. So he'll be looking online, oh, Twitter, okay, who's sent it? And he put it on the big screen behind, and 10,000 fans who are raving are seeing that, and he'll be having a conversation with that person on Twitter who's in Japan right now and watching this live on YouTube, for example. And you don't get that. Like, that's something that doesn't even happen in normal pop or rock acts, you know? So that's how I like with EDM. They do it, interestingly. The other thing that, for example, I like what Gareth Emery does and what even Afrojack does very well is, while he's performing on stage, he will look at the audience and see what's going on and then change his track mix to suit what's going on at that stage of the audience so that they will suddenly start dancing. It's crazy. So, yeah, I think there's a different dynamic with EDM live.
Yeah, for sure. I think any good DJ is going to be able to react well to their audience. Great example, actually, from this year's Glastonbury Festival was a DJ called Craig Charles. Most people know him from Red Dwarf. But he kind of in later life has become this funk and soul DJ on BBC Radio and does live performances as well. And just so good at reading the audience. And the audience is starting to pick up energy. You change the way that you're spinning. But when you take Tomorrowland and you put it on a video screen, you can't do that.
No,
it's impossible. That video link is one way.
You're in an open-air cinema.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't always work so well.
No. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dan. That was a great conversation. I think I'm really going to be interested in what people have to say, because it's the first time they're probably hearing about curated music for venues rather than an iPod. So, good on you. What's the company's name?
Music Concierge.
Music Concierge. Guys, check it out. Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's musicconcierge.co.uk.
.co.uk. All right, guys, go there. Give Daniel some love. He's on Twitter, Daniel Marc Evans with a C, Mark with a C, I think, right?
Yep.
And, if you have any comments, do let me know, and I will try and talk about them. All right, see you, Dan.
Cool, thanks so much.